Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings and Yahoo for Monday, May the 27th. Memorial Day MLB slate today. There's going to be some games all day because this is what MLB usually does on Memorial Day. For DraftKings, their main slate is going to be 10 games, and it's going to include the 1 o'clock games. It starts at 1 o'clock. It's going to include those games all the way up till 4:07. That's the main slate for DraftKings. For Yahoo, they're doing all day. Their slate starts at 1 o'clock and ends at 9:10 with the Texas-Seattle game. So Yahoo, all-day slate is their main. DraftKings is sort of doing like an early slate as their main slate. So we're going to look at both. We're going to talk about pitching, which pitchers I'm going to be targeting on each slate, on each site. We're going to look at some hitters. We'll go over some stacks that I'll be looking to. Then towards the end of the video, we'll be talking about some BVP plays as well. Just before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. So starting off at the top of the pitcher player pool, Garrett Cole, Max Scherzer, Luis Castillo are the three guys that we have over 10K on DraftKings. And I think there's a clear option here. Max Scherzer at home against the Marlins just really stands out on DraftKings at 11,100. I was very surprised that he was not the most expensive pitcher on the slate. Garrett Cole has a tough matchup with the Cubs. And I know Cole's been great this year, but that's just not the best spot. Luis Castillo, I think, is a really good play against the Pirates, but he's just so closely priced at Scherzer to where it's like hard for me to play Castillo over Scherzer. I know Scherzer's had troubles against the Marlins in the past, and this year when he played against the Marlins, he allowed 6 runs, 11 hits, did get 9 strikeouts though, just 11 DraftKings points. That's not going to keep me away from Scherzer here. Such a good spot, such a bad Marlins lineup. They have a low 2.9 implied run total today, which on DraftKings is the lowest on the slate. Scherzer a heavy favorite at minus 251. Just has so many good things going for him here. I think the upside's there. If we do go over to Yahoo and look at their pitcher pricing, Max Scherzer is $62. He's actually the most expensive pitcher on Yahoo by quite a bit. I don't think Scherzer is as necessary on Yahoo because of how expensive he is. I think you can save some money and go down to a guy like Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw not on the DraftKings main slate, but on Yahoo, he's on their main slate. He gets a matchup at home against the Mets. I really like Kershaw on Yahoo for $10 less than Scherzer. If we look at Yahoo's slate, pull it up real quickly, go to that game. The Mets have a 2.9 implied run total, so same implied run total as the Marlins. Kershaw's been showing a little bit more upside lately as well. He did get 8 Ks against Tampa Bay, 6 1/3, 6 hits, 2 runs, 8 Ks. 28 fantasy points, had 23 fantasy points against the Padres. He's been very consistent this year. He still does have 6, 7, 8 Ks in him. I don't know if Kershaw's going to go out there and get 13, 14 strikeouts like guys like Scherzer and Cole can do, but with this matchup against the Mets, this Mets team just been really bad lately. A ton of strikeouts in this lineup as well versus lefties. Now that they added Carlos Gomez, that's a power hitter, but Gomez strikes out a ton. Just so many Ks here for Kershaw. I think he has upside to potentially outscore Max Scherzer. So for that reason, I like going to Kershaw over Scherzer on Yahoo. But on DraftKings, where Kershaw is not an option, I think Max Scherzer is the best play at 11,100. I do like Luis Castillo at 10.7. I actually think on Yahoo, Luis Castillo is a guy you can pair with Clayton Kershaw because if you go Castillo-Kershaw, you're still left with $12 remaining per player, which I think can be worked around today. We are going to talk about some cheap bats that I really like on Yahoo that will allow you to pay up for pitching. And there's not a ton of really cheap pitchers that I like on Yahoo. So I think a lot of my builds over there are going to include 2 expensive pitchers. Castillo at home here against the Pirates, I do like quite a bit. It is a Pirates team that doesn't strike out much, but Castillo is just such a good pitcher that he can really get strikeouts against any team. Doesn't really matter the matchup. When he did face the Pirates earlier this year, he went 5 2/3 innings, allowed 2 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, 26 fantasy points against them when he faced them earlier this year. I think we could see a similar performance out of Castillo, if not a better performance. I do like pairing him with Kershaw on Yahoo. That's the pairing I really like the most. But now for DraftKings, you obviously are not going to be able to play Kershaw and Castillo together, Scherzer and Castillo together, just because there's not enough salary. Yahoo's pricing, their pitcher pricing is a lot softer, so you can kind of spin for both pitchers if you need to. On DraftKings, it's a bit tough to do that because their pricing is a little bit tighter. So we're going to need to find a cheaper SP2 that we can use to pair with Scherzer. And I think that's where a guy like Rick Porcello comes in play. Rick Porcello, very cheap, just 7,300. He gets a matchup today at home against the Indians. This is an Indians team that's just not really good right now. It's an Indians lineup that is getting a bit healthy. They have Lindor back, they have Jose Ramirez, but other than that, there are plenty of strikeouts in this Indians lineup. Like you have Jordan Luplow batting 6th, like Roberto Perez batting 7th. Last year, those guys would have been batting 8th and 9th in the Indians lineup, so it's definitely not the same Indians lineup that it used to be. 4.1 implied run total for the Indians, which is pretty low. Porcello, also pretty heavy favorite, minus 178. I think the Red Sox are in a good spot here for bats-wise. I think they can give him some run support against Jeffrey Rodriguez. And Porcello has been pitching very well lately. Hasn't been giving you a ton of upside, but he's been very consistent. At least 14 DraftKings points or over 13.5 DK points in like 6 or 7 straight games. He does have one good game in there against Oakland where he got 8 Ks in 8 innings. Usually Porcello is going to give you anywhere from 15 to 25 DraftKings points. I think against this Indians team, we could easily see Porcello go 6, 7 innings, maybe get like 6 or 7 strikeouts, maybe give up a run or two, get a win, get you 20 to 25 DK points. I think he makes a very good pairing with Max Scherzer. You still have almost 4K remaining for your bats that you can use if you go with these two guys. So I like going Scherzer, Porcello on DraftKings. On Yahoo, I like to spend and go Kershaw, Castillo. But now we'll quickly go over some of the other pitchers that I think I'm going to be targeting on this slate. So there's not really a lot at the top that I like besides Scherzer and Castillo. Like a lot of these 9K to 8K options, I just don't have that much interest in. So we're going to try and find some value at pitcher. Other cheap pitchers we can maybe consider. Daniel Norris at 6,900 against the Orioles is a guy that I think I'm definitely going to have some exposure to on Monday. He does stand out. I like that matchup. Norris is not the best pitcher, but the Orioles are also like the worst team in baseball, so I do like Norris quite a bit at 6,900 if you want to go to him. Looking for other cheap plays, Ivan Nova at 4,800 scares me, but he's so cheap. He gets a matchup with the Royals as well. I don't think Ivan Nova is the worst value pitcher. Like, if you play Scherzer and Nova together, which I think actually makes some sense, you could probably still fit in an expensive stack. Like, if you want to stack Coors Field, you could probably do that with Nova as your SP2 because of how cheap he is. The Royals are not that great of an offense. If Nova can get through, like, the top 5 hitters or, like, the top 4 or 5 hitters, he has easy outs when he gets towards the bottom of the lineup. So, Nova, not the worst value play. I don't mind him at 4,800 as a cheap option, but other than that, I think a lot of my pitcher exposure today is at the top. It's going to go to Scherzer and Castillo, and then I'm just going to be playing a lot of value with those guys, whether it's Porcello, Norris, Ivan Nova. I'll be mixing those guys in. I don't see myself playing too many pitchers today. I think I'm going to have a pretty tight pool. I don't think I'm going to be having going to have a lot of exposure to a bunch of different guys. I think this is a slate where there's just some clear options and there's just some clear like stayaways. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to bats now. Let's go ahead and talk about some hitters. So the Tigers are a cheap stack that I do like today. I did mention them, or I do want to mention them on Yahoo, where they are dirt cheap. You have Nico Goodrum leading off for $9. You have Christian Stewart at the minimum salary for $7. They're getting to face Gabriel Ynoa for the Orioles. This looks like this is going to be a bullpen game from the Orioles, and the Orioles do have one of the worst bullpens in the majors, so I really like some Tigers bats here. Nico Goodrum leading off is a guy that I really like on both sides. He's very cheap on DraftKings at just $3,700, and like I said on Yahoo, he's close to minimum salary. He's $9 over there. He makes for a great play in my opinion. Christian Stewart on Yahoo as well. I really like batting second for the minimum salary. He makes for a great play as well. I felt like I'm going to be playing a lot of Tigers bats on Yahoo with how cheap they are. And because I like some of the expensive pitching and I want to really spend at pitcher on Yahoo, that's going to lean to me playing mostly these cheap Tigers bats. They do have a 4.8 implied run total, which is relatively high for the Tigers. Usually don't see a team like the Tigers with that high of a total. Like I said, pretty bad Orioles bullpen, whether it's Ynoa who pitches like 2 or 3 innings. He's not that great of a pitcher. The guys coming in after him are not going to be good either. Orioles have a really bad bullpen, so like the Tigers bats here. Love their price tags on both sides. Think they make for a great cheap stack if you are trying to really spend at pitcher. But now moving over to DK, I do want to talk about this Coors game. If we look at DK's pricing on some of these Rockies bats, I know they're facing Zach Greinke, and Greinke is a relatively good pitcher. But some of these Rockies bats and Coors just are too cheap in my opinion. Like Ramel Tapia leading off for $4,200, and David Dahl for 4K. I think both are really good plays on DraftKings. Tapia 4,200, Dahl 4K. I like both of those guys quite a bit. So if you are going to attack Zach Greinke, you want to do it with lefties. He does struggle more against lefties than he does righties. It is in Coors Field. This game's been played in Coors, which is the most hitter-friendly park in the majors. You do have a 5.1 implied run total for the Rockies, which is still relatively high against Greinke. Wind blowing out to left, it looks like, at 9 miles per hour. Going to be 74 degrees as well, so relatively good hitting weather. I think you can target bats from both sides. I don't see myself going to the pitchers here. The only issue, though, is like the Diamondbacks are very expensive. You have like 4 guys all over 5K. The cheap bats, though, you can get from like the 5 through 7, 5 through 8 hole, like with Christian Walker, Nick Ahmed, Blake Swihart, Alex Avila. I guess if you want to target some D-backs bats and you need savings, those are the guys you could look to. But obviously, if you're stacking the Diamondbacks, you want to play like Ketel Marte and Adam Jones and Escobar. Those are the guys you really want to get to. On the Rocky side, though, like Dahl and Tapia are both pretty good hitters, and they're still really, really cheap. Even Daniel Murphy at 4,200 really stands out versus Greinke. So I do like some Rockies bats on DraftKings. I think on Yahoo you can also look to them. David Dahl's relatively cheap over there. I like him on Yahoo as well. He's at $16. I think Tapia is like $17. So those are 2 guys you could look to from the Rockies. But Dahl I really like. He's one of the cheaper bats from the Rockies that you can target on Yahoo. But I think that's it for about 3 hitters today. Let's go ahead and talk about some stacks now, and then we'll move on to BVP before we end the video. So if we're just looking for a cheap stack, a cheap team that has upside, I think the Tigers are going to be the team that I target here versus Gabriel Ynoa and the Orioles bullpen. I do like some of these cheap Tigers bats. I think some Reds versus Nick Kingham makes some sense. I didn't mention them, but they do have a 5.4 implied run total versus Kingham. Kingham has really struggled this year as well. Great Hitters Park and Great American Ballpark. You can find some value in the Reds lineup as well. I guess you could consider the Reds a cheap stack as well today because besides Suarez, all their hitters are under 5K. And you got some really cheap bats in Jesse Winker, Puig, Votto, pretty cheap as well. But now some other teams we could consider. Obviously, don't want to ignore this Coors game. Rockies bats and Diamondbacks hitters you could target. I do prefer the Rockies, but I see myself getting a little bit of exposure to both teams. And lastly, some Red Sox versus Jeffrey Rodriguez I think make a lot of sense. The Red Sox actually have the highest total on the slate right now at 5.5 runs, even higher than the Coors game. So these Red Sox hitters make a lot of sense for me. Jeffrey Rodriguez, just not that good of a pitcher, can definitely be attacked, or is a guy that we can definitely attack. So I do like the Red Sox as a stack, another team you could go to. But I think that's it for stacks today, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about some BVP now before we end the video. So obviously at the top here you can see a lot of these Marlins guys have hit Max Scherzer well, which I don't really understand, but we'll go ahead and cover the BVP. Miguel Rojas, 7 for 23 off Scherzer. Curtis Granderson, 12 for 40 with 3 home runs. Neil Walker, 4 for 26, 3 home runs. Martin Prado, 19 for 41 with a home run. And Starlin Castro, 7 for 19 with a home run. So all those guys have hit Scherzer well, but like I said, that's not going to scare me off of Scherzer. Still think he is a great play today. But now looking at some of these other BVP plays. Trevor Story, 11 for 38, 5 home runs off Zach Greinke. Mark Reynolds, 7 for 36, 4 home runs off of Greinke. Carlos Santana, 12 for 44 with 3 home runs off Porcello. Mike Moustakas, 7 for 18 with 2 home runs off Michael Pineda. And I think that's it for all the BVP guys. There are some more BVP plays that you can look at. If you do want to look at those, you can pause the video here. But I think that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed, just make sure you click that like button down below, and make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, or like always, you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. Feel free to message me on Twitter if you have any questions. But yeah, guys, really appreciate you watching the video. Have a fun Memorial Day. Enjoy your day off. Hopefully you win some money today, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Peace.